Lorraine was going to talk. I guess she did. Well, good evening. Well, I've had a wonderful day. I did a reading this morning in the Mennonite church where my niece was being baptized. And every time I go to another church, I run into the differences in belief and understanding of people that follow the literal Bible versus people that work from a deeper spiritual understanding, which we teach here. But before I get into the issue of boundaries, I want to spend a minute on some personal stuff, if you don't mind. As you know, last year I taught a class very early in the year, and then you didn't see much of me because I had quite a battle with cancer. And I'm looking forward now to a CT scan next week. I'm looking forward to learning that I'm cancer-free because I feel very... And I give credit really to, you know, that old adage, ask and you shall receive. Because I'm connected to such a larger community through the Ministers Forum. There was the RSI Ministers Forum, there's the New Thought Ministers Forum, which includes the Unity Church and several other denominations. And when you ask for treatment, there are powerful minds out there. And there are powerful minds here. But I really credit all the prayers and all the treatments. And frankly, I had some people in the Mennonite churches treating for me. I had people in the Pentecostal church treating for me, doing their form of prayer. And I made sure, whenever I asked, make sure it's positive. And it works. It works. And the doctors I've dealt with have been really quite a little bit quizzical at my positive attitude. You know, they comment once in a while. Boy, you really are positive. Well, yeah. So get on with it and fix me, you know. Well, we have challenges in life, and it's a spiritual opportunity. Really, difficulty of any kind is a spiritual opportunity. So, I'm authorized to tell you now that Edith has her own spiritual opportunity. She's been diagnosed with cancer of the liver. And I have told her that I've already set a very good example for you. So follow my good example, and she's agreed to do that as best she can. So, we need your prayers. We need you to include us in your treatments, because I know it works. I've already blasted it out on the internet, and the Mennonites are going to pray for us and whatever, because all this masses together. This human consciousness is in the air all around us. So I just wanted to mention that before I start, and thanks for indulging me a little bit. Now on to Iyanla Vanzant, who talks about boundaries, and Shari's going to talk more about this, but I do have a story. She's talking about the boundaries that we place between us and other people, so that other people don't walk all over us. And it's honoring yourself, basically. Your boundaries honor yourself. I have a family member who has had a bit of trouble with boundaries. And I just recalled a time when she had a job in a call center. And there was a co-worker in the call center who had just started. She had just moved from Winnipeg, and she'd been on the job about a week. And one day, this family member says, "Can I borrow your car?" She didn't have one. Because this co-worker's husband is stuck in Wynyard, and they've blocked off the highway. And he doesn't have money for a motel. He's stuck there and he's got nowhere to stay. "I'd like to drive your car to Wynyard and pick him up." And I said, "Wait a minute, they've blocked off the highway, and it's blizzarding, by the way. You look out the window and there's a raging blizzard on." I said, "No, you're not." "Oh, well, how can you not? You know, this guy is in desperate straits." "Yes, he's in desperate straits, and so will you be if you go out in a raging blizzard and get blinded and end up in the ditch." But this is an example of somebody with no sense of boundaries. I said, "How long have you known this coworker?" "Oh, well, just a couple of days." You know, zero boundaries. And it's wonderful, you know, to use your heart in that way and say, "Gee, I really, really want to help." But without boundaries, you are simply walking into trouble. And as it happens, this fellow who had a truckload of furniture he was bringing from Winnipeg traded 2 lamps that he had gotten from his mother to a motel owner for a room, and spent a comfortable night, and drove in the morning. So he's out 2 lamps, which is better than being out a life and frozen in a ditch. So that's my story, and Shari will tell you more about that. I want to talk about not the boundaries we have with other people, but the boundaries we set around ourselves in terms of what will you accept? How much hardship will you tolerate? How much pain are you willing to take? And I had personal experience of this last year when I'm dealing with cancer. Just how sick am I prepared to get before I say enough is enough internally and say, "Damn it, heal me, God." I think it was it Carol Carnes who used to say, "Sometimes you just got to do a goddamn it treatment." And put your foot down and say, "Enough is enough. This is all I'm willing to accept. Draw the line in the sand." We have good news. In the Bible, gospel means good news, right? You knew that. And the good news is, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's in you. It's not waiting for you when you die. In fact, Jesus said, "It's at hand," which means it's right here. It's in you. And that means that you can have it all, but guess what? You get to decide how much less than all you'll have. And we all have boundaries out. So we all accept less than all, and we decide how much less than all. Those are your boundaries. Well, the thing is that, do you accept abundance? Are you open to abundance? Do you accept healing or wholeness? Interesting flying insects. Do you tolerate being broke, or hurt, or sick? Does your physical circumstance govern your experience? This is the spiritual lesson that I had last year. And Edith has already said this is going to be a spiritual lesson, a spiritual experience for her. She wants you to know that. Does your physical circumstance govern your experience, or does your experience rise above your physical circumstance? Remember, you're never defeated when you get knocked down. Only when you don't get back up are you defeated. So the fence you build around you determines what you will accept. And these boundaries will affect everything in your life until you knock them down. Now, the boundaries you have with others are very important, and Iyanla Vanzant talks about that, and Shari will talk more about that. But the boundaries you set for yourself are absolutely vital because they form the walls of your personal prison. Do you have a personal prison in which you live? These walls will affect health, wealth, and the relationships in your life. I know you don't want to be like this family member of mine that had no boundaries at all with others. You don't want to go through life like a version of Gullible's Travels. And Ernest Holmes said, be open-minded, but not so open that your brains fall out. And on that note, I'm going to let my colleague continue and talk about Iyanla Vanzant.
It is my pleasure to talk to you about Iyanla's book, One Day My Soul Opened Up. And it is about boundaries. And what she says the working definition is, the principle we are working with today is boundaries. They are the mental, emotional, or physical constructs that define or limit the area in which one is willing to be present. The space or area in which one works, lives, desires to be. So, as you know, or may not know, as you start taking classes, you just start to have this relationship with Spirit. It starts to play with you and may on occasion toy with you like a cat and a mouse, and you're the mouse. But when we have an idea like this, boundaries, it's actually quite interesting because I spend a week or more, because I know what, well, in this case, I happen to know it was my week to talk. I happen to have plenty of time to work with boundaries. These experiences start to happen all around boundaries to actually help me define what it is about boundaries. But I want to share one story with you about boundaries. It was a lesson that took a year. As you may know, I'm a massage therapist in my other career. And I had this client, and she said, I really need your help. I'm dying. So I said, okay, come on in. Let's get to work and see what we can do for you. What I didn't know is that by accepting her in, she thought she was in. She phoned 5 and 6 times a day. Not only having appointments with me, but phoning 5 and 6 times a day and saying, what do I do now? This is happening, what do I do now? And then on Thursdays, I usually drive out to Delisle, and so she wouldn't have an appointment that day. She'd phone me at 8 o'clock in the morning and say, can I just run over? Can you just take a look at me quickly and tell me what I need to do for the day? And some days I'd say yes, and some days I'd say, well, I'm a little rushed, I can't see you today. And then when I get home, phone calls would be there. Can I come over tonight then? I really need help. And there's this huge part of me that really wants to help people. But the lesson that I had forgotten when I first got into massage therapy, and then I've been in this business now 20 years, is that I can't do the work for you. I can help you, but the journey is yours. The choices you make are yours. And I had forgotten that in this case. I thought I could save her. I could help her. I could heal her. And it went on for a year. And I have to tell you, by the end of the year, I didn't have a lot to give to my partner, to my family. I was drained. And I woke up one morning and I said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. She's not appearing to get better, but she is better from all that I know. I needed to draw that boundary. I had to sit with it and think about it. And so I had the talk with her. And I'll tell you, for a person who doesn't like confrontation, it's hard having a conversation about boundaries. And I said, I really want to help you. I enjoy working with you. And she said, you're a healer. You're supposed to be available for me 24/7. I said, where's that written? I said, no. I said, what makes me able to help people is to have some space for myself, where I can recharge and get centered so that I can help. So I said, you can't call me anymore. I said, we'll book your appointment, and that's your appointment. I said, I'm going to start treating you like I treat my other clients. They call, they book their appointment, I see them, they go on their way with homework. And then I see them the next time they come. I said, we have to do that. I have to be very clear. Weekends are mine and David's. Definitely no phone calls at 8 o'clock in the morning. Not happening. And as all good children would do, she tested me. And I said, that's it, I'm not seeing you for a week. And I said, if you phone me during that week, I won't see you for 2 weeks. She called. I didn't see her for 2 weeks. I did not hear a peep from her for 2 weeks. It was a blessed 2 weeks. Very quiet. I got to recharge. I got to get back and fill myself up. But that's part of boundaries that we have to learn for ourselves. As Darrell said, it's a slightly different view. He's looking at it from the inside out. I'm telling you, we need to have, as Iyanla Vanzant says, a line in the sand. We have to be able to draw that. Because if we don't, we actually wind up a little bit like his relative. It's like, no, I really don't want to do that. Okay, I'll do that for you. And then we mutter to ourselves. We go, oh, I can't believe I just did that. Oh. But when we have a clear boundary, it falls in line with our values and our opinion of self-worth. And it's an opportunity to honor ourselves, but it's also an opportunity to honor them. That shifted the relationship. And it is a much better relationship. Does it slide? Yes, it does. And I have to remember to draw the line in the sand again and say, come back. It's, how many of you have seen children without boundaries? Who run amok? Who are looking for boundaries, right? You know, I don't have any children, but I've babysat. And I've run the kids program. And it's interesting because they respect me because I draw a line in the sand for them. That is not acceptable behavior. You can't do that in here. And they stop. And they go, okay. And they go do something else. They're looking for that sense of leadership. And when I was thinking about it, it's equated, believe it or not, to pack, to the way dogs live, to the way the animal kingdom is. You have an alpha. The alpha is strong, sure. It sets the rules. It sets a boundary. This is our territory. You know, and the young animals, they might try to take the territory, they might challenge, and they get smacked down. No, stop, this is your place, these are the rules. And they go, okay, wow, whew, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can just live my life and be. And I noticed it when, you know, my first dog was a Sheltie. An absolutely blessed, beautiful dog that came directly from Spirit and was no trouble whatsoever. Knew the rules before I knew the rules. It was amazing. Noel, on the other hand, my lovely, beautiful boy, now, not so much. And we have to start laying down the rules and making the corrections of what's appropriate behavior, what's not appropriate behavior, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that makes him a gorgeous dog to be around. People come into my home, that's where my practice is, and they love him. I have a friend staying with us. She has a dog. He's still a puppy, and puppies have no control. They have no boundaries. And so it's quite a different, you know, Noel, he sits by the door and he just waits for his cookie. Yoda, on the other hand, he's like leaping at the, come on, pay attention to me, trying to steal the food. You know, Noel just sometimes puts him in his place, but sometimes I put him in his place, sometimes Diana puts him in his place. You know, but that's what it's about. It's about boundaries. We need them. How many of you go for drives in the city? And you look at houses and you think, oh, I really like that one. That one appeals to me. How many of you looked at the fences? Some houses have no fences, wide open. Others have little hedge rows or little stone rows. Some a little higher, and then some a little higher, and then 6 feet. This is my boundary. Don't mess with my boundary. It was interesting, there was a plow wind that went through a little while ago, and our fence went kerploosh. We had to put a new fence in. We created a new boundary. But it was good. There's nothing wrong with having boundaries. There are times I wish I had something in the front of my house, not to keep people out, but to keep the dandelions out from the city, from their property, blowing into my yard. I have a lovely yellow lawn instead of green. But there is a necessity within us that says that we need to know for ourselves where we are willing to draw that line. And it's not necessarily to create a limit within us, but it is a support structure that gives us framework, that allows us to move and honor ourselves. It doesn't have to be a limiting structure. It doesn't have to close your world off. When it is in a line and attuned with your values and what you hold as dear. So, there's homework to do about boundaries, but I just wanted to share with you one of the things that she says in here. Let me remember. Boundaries allow me to take care of myself. Boundaries enable others to take care of themselves. Boundaries create the freedom of choice to give, to share, or to support. It doesn't necessarily need to mean taking care of. I can say no and still give love and support. Boundaries keep me in my divine right space. So today, look to your boundaries. Look to your divine right space. And so it is.
And so it is.